All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this fourth session in our Entrepreneurial Pioneer Series. We are doing these fireside chats to give everyone a chance to meet with the founders of TiE Boston. We just turned 25 this year, and I think this is a great opportunity to everyone to hear straight from the founders. Today's founder is Samir Desai. Samir Desai is founder of SRC Systems, which I believe he sold to a NYCE company. And since then, he's been dedicating a lot of his time, energy, effort, and resources that he has towards the Desai Foundation. And I'm sure we will hear a little bit more about the Desai Foundation. Moderating today is Yash Shah, who is president-elect for TiE Boston. In a few months, he's taking over. So looking forward to that. Yash is also a serial entrepreneur, having several successful exits. So I'm not going to go into each one of them, but he's the his current company is GVO. He has many accomplishments under his belt, which I'm sure over the course of this year, we will get to know Yash better. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Yash to take it away with Samir, and we will have a Q&A at the end. Over to you, Yash.
Thank you, Anu. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, as you said, welcome everyone for this another episode of this Fireside Chat series. I think it's been, every one of them has been very interesting. Everybody has a different perspective. This is another one. We have a few more coming up after this as well. And there's a gala, and post that there'll be a couple of more as well. This is a special fireside chat, not because I'm the one hosting it, but because I have a special relationship with Samir, and TiE has connection throughout our, 25 years, even beyond probably TiE Atlantic days.
92 before.
Yeah, and so when I first got to know Samir I was an aspiring entrepreneur. He was already an established entrepreneur. It was almost like, wow, it'd be nice to get to know Samir one of these days and get to meet him, sort of a fan club for Sam Desai. And from that moment to the point where we had the chance to meet with him, network with him, hang out with him, became friends, started to socialize with him. Then that relationship evolved into a mentor, advisor, an investor, now a very close family friend. We socialized, vacation together. All throughout the journey, TiE has been critical to that entire journey. Whether it was retreats, whether it was monthly events, whether it was any of those situations, it just became like our social fabric for connection. So it's a great privilege to have this opportunity to talk to Samir. As Anu already introduced, Samir is a very established entrepreneur well before we even started thinking about entrepreneurship. And not only he had a great exit with SRC, but post that, he had a superb second career, I guess, in philanthropy. And the Desai Foundation has been around for 25 years as well, which is also celebrating 25 years along with TiE. And that's still going strong. So, and it's a great entrepreneurship and great in philanthropy. And I think, Samir, we're going to spend next hour talking about yourself and TiE and different things. So I'm not going to give deeper introductions, but are you ready to get into the discussion?
Of course, and I must tell that we have known since 92, and Yash is very right that we started in 92, but I think it got strengthened as we progressed within TiE. And I know they have been charter members for a long time.
22 years.
Yeah, and I think we have had benefit of their wisdom at the same time. And I think this is a very good example what TiE has created, that relationship can grow to a deep relationship. And I think we are creating a social fabric among community. And we are not the only example, I'm sure of that. Because I think TiE must have created hundreds of relationships. And I think we need to be proud of that. And my hope is that we continue for next 25 years.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. That's why I said it's really a special event. So let's start with the early days. Let's introduce yourself and what were the early days of your life before entrepreneurship? What was the early life for Sam Desai and how we grew up? What are some of your interests, some of the lessons you learned before you dived into the entrepreneurship world?
Well, that's a long life. So, but to make it, I think my life has been full of unexpected events and people I have met, and call them all accidents. And but some of them have been pleasant. But I think the key is that throughout those accidents and journey of my life, I constantly learn, and almost everything I have learned through that has really contributed to my successes in personal life, business life, as well as philanthropic life. So I was born in a small village, and all the amenities that we take for granted were absent, even for those days. And what I would never say that I had ambition or dream that I could have had, because I was not exposed to outside world.
Right.
Then what happened was, however, I think that what happened is that I learned a lot. I learned from my grandparents and village how to work with people, community service. And I think equally well, I learned how to use very limited resources to create successes.
Key to entrepreneurship.
Correct. And I think that did remain throughout my life. So when I left the town, I don't think I wanted to succeed, but I didn't know what I wanted to succeed for. And then in third year of my college, there was a life-changing event occurred. My father passed away. And at that time, experiences that I followed or happened to us made me even better person. It taught me how to solve problems, how to deal with gray areas, and also how to deal with fear. That don't let fear of failure ever dictate you. And I think that was the most important thing I learned during that time. And regardless of all these things, I got 2 engineering degrees to work in manufacturing. And fate has it that in US, I never found a job in manufacturing.
So you studied manufacturing in India?
And also in the United States.
Okay.
And my whole dream, or at that time, was to become a general manager of a big plant or something. And that didn't work out. But then, but I was thrown into this technology, many of them, which I never had heard about, never experienced, nor even have studied. However, I met a lot of good people through that. And by working with 2 startups and helping them grow, I learned a lot. And then during that time, I felt that all through the journey, when you look at all 3 parts, I met some fantastic people. They opened doors to us. And I think also I had great experiences. And with a little bit of hard work and some lucky breaks, everything came together. So Nilima and I are very proud of being part of many, many organizations in Massachusetts. We are proud of our successful company, which was a high-tech applications company. And at the same time, I think we are proud of the founding of the Desai Foundation. And obviously, we are 2 capable daughters.
Yeah. So when you look back to those early years and reflect back on those 30 years of that before you kind of jump into the next phase of your life, can you think of like what would you do differently? Do you have any regrets or anything kind of change? What would you do differently if you had the opportunity to play that life over again?
Well, now you're asking to go over 70 years.
I mean, the early part, I'm like, before you got into this stuff,
I understand that. But just to give me a second, I think the key thing is that I have learned one thing though, that you don't look at your past decision or life in light of what you know today or experience we have today.
Right.
By doing that, it's very dangerous. And more importantly, all of us would look as if we are inconsistent, contradictory, and definitely wrong. So what I heard, I think rewriting history of your own life is actually looks very rewarding, but it's not worth it. But there is one thing which is very important, I think, that documenting your experiences, your life, people you have met, your thoughts, do give you an opportunity to really look into the rear view mirror and reflect your life, contemplate, and also give some clarity. So I've been doing that with some mixed results.
So when you go back and think, I agree with you, it's hard to go back and review that. But when you think about that, were there somebody or some person or some role or somebody who played a critical role that kind of helped you shape you or help you in that early phase of your life that you can think of?
Yeah, first I want to add to your previous questions. I think when I really think, now that I had a minute to think, I feel that I could have done better in my personal life to help my grandmother, my mother, and 2 sisters. In business, I thought that my timing was off. I think we were applying technologies just too early to industries, and neither technology nor industry were ready to accept. An example of that voice response system in 75, voice recognition in 1980, smart card in 1982, and then GPS in 96. We even had World Wide Web in 94 or 5, I forget. And then we even created a handheld device for nurses to work in hospital. All these were very good technologies, very good applications, but time was not right. And I could always do more for public good. And I think that's always the case.
Yeah.
And then going to yours.
Can you think of somebody who played a big role in your life at that time?
Oh, actually, I don't normally give credit to any single person in my life for that, for my successes or failure for that matter. Because I think we are all product of our circumstances, people we have come across, as well as I think where we are born. And when you look at that, everybody who you have come and met or come across have influenced your life one way or another. So actually, I'm very grateful to many of them, especially a lot of people I met at Thai. And I also feel that if I have to thank anybody, I have to thank my grandmother, grandparents, and mother, and my father I did know very well.
Yeah. So let's switch topic now. So we kind of go from there to, I know you worked for multiple companies, at least 4 companies before you started SRC in 1985, right? So what was that turning point that made you say, okay, I'm done working for somebody and I want to start my own entrepreneurial journey? And, this is before entrepreneurship was so common that everybody wants to do this thing. This is well before, all the resources that are now available were not available at that time. But you decided to jump in and do this thing, and you didn't follow the venture route. You kind of did this all pretty much on your own. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's somewhat simple. And I think I'm going to start with a story during my village life. When I was young, a village boy, one of my jobs was to go and pick mangoes. And I always wanted to be on the top of the ladder, no matter how big or small that ladder was. And I think that remained in my head when I was working during professional years. And I always wanted to be number 1, but regardless of where that ladder was. So then for my personal circumstances were such that I couldn't start a company early. But with these 4 companies I had worked with, I worked hard, I had many, many successes, and I almost made it to the top, but never was number one. The top of the ladder was illusion over there. So when I became 40, I said that I should do it either now or never. And then at that time, I had already learned how to work with people at different levels. I have been dealing with complex technology and concept. And above all, I also had learned how to deal with the unexpected. So I had ingredients that is good for me. Yeah. And then despite the high interest rates, no equity money, as well as 2 young daughters, newly built home, I just jumped in and never looked back.
Similar stories as what I have as well. But that's so. If you now were to look back and just see what the advice you would give to the current and sort of future entrepreneurs who are looking at this thing and say, okay, you obviously did it at a very different time frame. Time frames are a bit different right now, but just give us a context of what would you give like today advice to those entrepreneurs?
Well, there are 2 questions.
Yeah,
but I think I think I am a storyteller, so I think I'm going to tell you about the episodes that I was watching on History Channel called Man Who Made America.
Okay.
And these are 7 episodes of icon of industry who changed the industries and face of this nation. And they include people like Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, Mellon, JP Morgan, a few more. And what was common among them was their persistence, perseverance, and one more thing, which was the most important, I think. They had single-mindedness about success. I think you require those 3, obviously. But I think they didn't have many things that we take for granted. They didn't have experience, knowledge, any industry leaders to consult with, no government research or grants or subsidies to count on. But I think they succeeded because they were determined to succeed. And also, but I know the times are different because that's
now we have all the resources in the world.
Yeah. So I think when you think about today, we have tremendous amount of resources. You think about money, research, studies, mentors, and all these people. And I think, but this overabundance of advice, mentors or advisors, money also have a downside, which is it creates a pressure cooker. And it distracts you from your goal of creating product and services which serves the customer. And so my advice always is that be customer-centric and do not get distracted. And I think one more thing is that you have to deal with unexpected regardless, because right now competition is higher, so unexpectation that the events occur faster. And the third thing is, I think you should always deal with the cards in your hand. Don't wait for the next hand, because many of us do that. And I think sometimes we lose an opportunities which is all around us. We should just grab them.
Good answer. When you look at the SRC journey, right? You had a pretty long journey with SRC, and obviously culminated into a very good, successful exit, and it was pretty much entirely self-funded, and I don't think you ever raised any outside money. But can you think of times at that journey that you had difficult times, very troubled times, where you regretted saying, "Oh, I shouldn't have gotten into this stuff. I wish it was. I should have." Did you ever regret jumping into entrepreneurship?
Well, first of all, everyone who is an entrepreneur are going to face some difficulties. But in my case, I'm sure I had tons of those, and I can perhaps write a book about it. But I think I have never regretted to be entrepreneur. Quite the contrary, I thrived in it, and I personally feel that it gave me resources, energy, platform to do politics, community service, work with many other educational and other institutions. And I think I was able to do more. So in my case, I felt that without that, I couldn't have met all these friends that I have made.
Right.
I couldn't have all this charity and resources I have developed. So I'm very grateful to be entrepreneur, and I have never regretted.
You've never regretted much. Never. So what actually finally made SRC exit successful? What at the end of the day, you had a pretty good successful exit. What do you think contributed to the success of SRC and when it ended?
Oh boy. Well, I think the success, we had principle from day one. First of all, I knew that technology application, even though it was early, is not as unique, and there is always somebody going to create the same thing. I'm sure you have experienced the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I never felt that I worried about how big my cap should be or
Valuations.
valuation and all that. My single most important thing that I kept preaching to all the employees and everybody was that customer is the king. Never ever forget. And I used to speak to 2/3 of employee almost every year, 1-to-1, in a group of 10 or 15. And I used to preach that, number one. Number two, I also felt that our vendors and partners are equally good. And if we treat them right, and if we work with them fairly, they should be equal partner in terms of without success. And I think the third was that I felt that employees, and what we always say, they are the asset. The reason I put them third is without first customer, we won't have employees. So
Right.
I was always, people were always criticizing me on putting employees third, by the way. And the last one were the stockholders, which I happen to be one of them.
Only one of them. Okay. So let's pivot, right? So obviously exit of SRC was a big event, but at the same time, when that happened, two things happened in this region. One was a birth of Thai Atlantic, and then the birth of Desai Foundation. Both are celebrating 25 years today, both going very strong. You are fully committed to Desai Foundation. You're still involved with Thai. So let's talk about Thai first, and then we go into the Desai Foundation.
All right.
Right. And I know Thai formed in your office. It was in your SRC office, in your building. I think 128 Wheeler, was it?
Yes,
the same
128
yeah.
Wheeler.
So that's where it happened. So you must have some good stories there. But just give us an idea what the environment looked like at that time when the Thai Atlantic was formed. And what, second question was like, what was life before Thai Boston, Thai Atlantic, and what was afterwards?
All right. I think if you look at mid-60s through mid-90s, there were lots of organization in Indian community which were based on culture, education, and other community services. But there was not a single organization that was focused on business and economic growth. And I think Thai Atlantic, as it was called, Thai Boston, changed all that. And I think it brought together people across gender, cultures, religion, states, languages, and with single purpose of economic growth and entrepreneurship. And I think that is the first thing I should say. After that, if you look at Thai, I think first thing before I go into the memory lane, if, as
Right.
we call it, I want to give tribute to Dr. Ashok Kalalkar.
Yep.
I think Ashok held so many first positions that I can't even count. And not only that, in 99, he kicked off Thai Angel. And he was third president. And more than that, he was a personal friend. And actually, he was also very pillar of strength for us. And without him, I think we need to remember him. And I think we need to.
He was also on the Santan and my company's board as well, right?
Right, he was on your board too,
Right.
yeah. And I think after saying that, I have very many vivid memory during those days. So first of all, there was a lot of energy and enthusiasm.
Right.
And I remember Rahul Singh was the first one to mention Thai and brought that name to some of us from Silicon Valley. And I think Desh was the most successful, Desh Pandey was the most successful entrepreneur, but he also had a lot of connection here as well as on West Coast. So initially we all started meeting at Desh's house and then subsequently, simultaneously rather, at SRC office, which was my office. And all of us were meeting but what we lacked as a startup was staff.
You don't have the resources we have now.
Any resources that you have right now.
I heard Nilima was helpful in getting some of the early organization admin work done.
Right. So I think the way it was happening is that I actually became so we were trying to improvise. We are startups, so we have to improvise. So I think what happened was that we are actually looking at, I became the chairman of the events, which is where the most work is. So my office became headquarters, and it had all these accounting, coordination, event management functions. Every function was done there. And naturally, I must give credit to Nilima quite a bit, because she was initially the negotiator with the hotels and everything, and also creating the mailing list and all that. I think, and then I think in March '97, we had a huge meeting at Westin Hotel, and the event was sold out, and we had our journey starting out there. But I think when you look at that, our first monthly meeting and subsequent one is I think, cornerstone of the success.
I agree.
So by '99, I believe, and again, maybe a year off or here and there, but I think we had 200, average attendance was 250. Where
at the monthly meetings.
Monthly meetings,
yeah.
And it was members, charter members, and attendees will come together at that time, and then it will always end. Groups of them going out for dinners, drinks. It was like a social fabric. And then our first ThaiCon East, as it was called then, was in '98, and Triveni Upadhyay was the first chair, and Sushil Bhatia was the chair of the sponsorship. I remember.
Wow.
And then, and it was very successful. And that and subsequent ones were not only had content and great speakers, but it was 2.5 day effort, long one. ThaiCon. And then it always ended in gala, which was joyous, entertaining, and fun. It was a great fun days, to be honest, and we enjoyed the hell out of it.
A lot of dancing at the end.
We love that. Yeah, and I think then I remember Ashok Bhogani kicked off workshop for entrepreneurs. I think Dr. Dinesh Patel kicked off in, I think it was 99 or 98, healthcare and biotech forum. Okay. And I can go on, but I think key thing I wanted to convey that everybody sort of jumped in and worked towards one thing, success of Thai. And it all came together. Right.
Interesting. Yeah. So when you look, sorry, you had something.
No, but I think you asked also what
What was life before and after? Thai?
yeah, I know, what it has created to some extent, I think.
Yeah.
I think that you can talk about numbers, but I think my feeling about Thai is that it has enriched almost everyone. It has touched in terms of knowledge, experience, resources, contact, something it gave more to them.
Yeah.
So everybody who have walked away should have gained something. But look at what we have created, actually, when you think about it. All the volunteers, early volunteers, they used to work in the TICON and monthly meeting, have been entrepreneurs. We have created lots of economic growth, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billion, I don't have the numbers. But, and also third one, which is charter members have gained resources, contacts, and friendships. And successful entrepreneurs have contributed to the community. Lot of philanthropic effort happened, community services, and I think most importantly, knowledge. Okay, and we just have begun, to be honest. And I think we're only 25 years old.
No, so that was my next question. Like we think about it. First, do you think when we guys were all getting together early stage, you had some ideas on what Thai would be, or what are you trying to create that stuff? Do you think it meet its objective for the first 25 years? And you look back and say, wow, this is what we thought. This is where we are now. How does that compare to what we were thinking to where we are now?
I think, first of all, we have succeeded, and I think in quite a bit of it, and we can always do better. I think that's the nature of the beast. And I think one thing we should be all proud of, that our leadership has successfully changed every 2 years.
That's correct.
That has brought some younger folks in it. We have had 2 women presidents.
Yeah.
We had new women charter members, many of them. We only had 1 to start with. And I think we should take credit for that. And yes, I think we can do many different things. And I think now that you're going to be the president, I'll be pushing you around. And I think Anu may be very grateful
to pass it on to say, okay, deal with Samir now.
So I think I think that we should take different direction in few areas, which I think TY is one of them. Second one is, I think we should have very regular meeting where everybody come together. Not just sectors, because we are isolating people and it doesn't create the social fabric. And I think the third thing, which is that I really think we are leaving out a lot of businesses because we constantly talk about high tech and changing the industry, and sometimes our talks are too big. And I think that scares other people. I personally think that employment and growth in this country and almost every country has been created by smaller businesses and businesses that are not even known.
Right.
And I think we need to bring them in folder. And I think we should also extend our hand to unserved community for what I call day-to-day entrepreneurship.
I agree. So something we need to try back. So bring back the monthly meeting is what you're saying. Bring back those social fabric and connections. That's great. That's great insight on the Thai. I'm sure you have a lot of stories. Do you have still documents sitting in the office?
Boxes
of archives of that stuff in the office.
Yeah, a couple of boxes in my back room here. I'm sure. Yeah. We have been changing offices, so I had to bring it here. So
let's pivot in the time. So let's pivot to so at the same time you got in Thai founding of the Thai Atlantic and Thai Boston, you started the Desai Foundation. And sort of, I know you've always been involved in the communities and very involved, all supporting all the areas and all that. And Nilima and you both have been very supportive of that stuff. But what actually got you? I mean, starting in philanthropy is not easy. Donating is one thing, but running a foundation and doing that stuff, many people have done it now, obviously, but it's still, you tried it 25 years ago. Just give me an idea on what caused you to just go into forming this foundation. What drove this sort of sense of service within you and Nilima to make that happen?
So I'm going to connect back to my very first sentence.
Okay.
I told you that my journey has taught me a lot of things, and it has contributed to every part of life. And naturally, this is one of them. And so I will start with my village life, where I can tell you that if you look at the broader definition of philanthropy, my philanthropy started when I was 10 years old. I was supposed to dig gutters to the water to farms and or away from the streets. I was supposed to fix holes in the street. I was supposed to serve all these people town meetings, which were constantly at my home. And I think there was one major project, which is still so vivid in my head, that when I was in 7th grade, we had no high school. And suddenly leaders decided to build a new high school. And everybody came together, children, women, men, laborers, everybody. And it was like another movie, okay? And so I was not only supposed to serve all the meetings that were occurring in my home for that project, but also for 3 months, my job was to bring sand in a bullock cart to make bricks. And within 3 months, we had a brand new high school. And we were all proud of it. And it's very vivid in my head. And so in a sense that it was in my, what we call in Gujarati, Ganituti, it's part of my blood.
Part of the blood.
And I think, so when we started, Nilim and I started in Norwood, Massachusetts, our life, we joined JCs, which is National Organization for Community Services for Young People. And subsequently, obviously, we participated in almost every organization around here and has some role in it. And I think what happened was that I personally think that, to me, you're learning a lot. You're meeting a lot of good people, which you would not normally meet. And I have constantly believed that we should be starting philanthropy very young, give more often, and give more than money, give yourself. And I personally have always believed that. So that is what I learned when I was a child, and I kept doing it. So it's something with me. So I can't say that I started yesterday or today. But I think in terms of the Desai Foundation, which is, I think, second question you asked.
Right.
I think the way it happened was we were in Machu Picchu, and in one evening while having drink and discussion, among many topics, the topic of doing good came out. And I think at that time, kids were younger. And we thought we were involved in a lot and we want to do more. So then we thought that we should bring all these, and the topic of doing more and giving more became a little bit bigger topic. And then suddenly we said that, okay, when we go back, we need to bring all these activities under one roof. And so when we came back in 97, the Desai Foundation was born.
Okay. So now if you look at, it's been 25 years, right? And you've done a lot. I know a lot because I'm obviously involved I'm on the board of the foundation. But where, just high level, obviously we're involved in many, many areas right now, but where do you see Desai Foundation going forward now as you continue on this journey?
Well, as you know, we had a great run for 25 years, and I think we have exceeded all our initial expectations. But since we became a public foundation in 2014, um, we have grown substantially. In India, I think the most important is that I think our model has really stuck very, very well. And I think local participation and rural, working with rural communities um, has a very deep roots in us. And what has happened is that we have been invited, we are not marketing ourselves.
Right, you get invited to come in.
We've been invited to all these places. So in India, now we are in 8 states. We are about 500 plus strong army, part-time and full-time. And we have, in just last 1 year, we have done 2 million, we have touched 2 million lives directly. And I think our programs are pretty solid. So we need to strengthen our programs and infrastructure a lot more. But also, I think in India, we have these 7 flagship programs, I think, and all of them can be applied throughout the country with local participation, not only in that country, but also I think in some other countries. And I also believe that they are going to be self-sustaining. So all of them are very, very good candidates for becoming foundations by themselves.
So you can scale it much easily, you can replicate it.
Yeah, I don't use that word because I don't want to go in with that purpose, because it should grow by itself.
Sure.
I don't want to state that you get lots of resources and keep growing, and we don't, our philosophy is not that.
Right.
But we grow organically, properly. And then also I think in the US, we are somewhat stagnated. And so we are revamping a lot of US programs and looking at it and reviewing it. And you'll hear, I think, sometime in July, a couple of announcements about 2 new projects, but then I think we'll see more. So we are still looking at it, what we should do, how it's, because things have changed substantially, and because of the COVID and many other things.
Sure. Good. So I think we covered all the key 4 topics, and I think we have hopefully opened up for some questions soon, but I will bring it back to personal thing again for a change. And you've been doing a lot, right? I mean, I know you very well, you're always going, you push me to do some stuff. I remember playing golf with you in Baroda at the Palace, and then you had some pain in the knee, and I was like, oh, let's not do it. And you're like, no, we're going to do the whole nine holes. And you did the whole full 9 holes around the Palace. And it was like, wow, you don't give up, right? And so I'm just curious, with you still going strong, where do you get this energy to keep on going despite all the challenges? And I know when India was having the issue with COVID and the Delta variant, all the stuff, the Desai Foundation, where you're up all night trying to make calls and ship stuff in and do a lot of stuff. This requires a lot of energy. So clearly, it's how do you pull this off?
Well, energy is something that I think is very personal and internal. I think that I'm internally always motivated because I pushed very hard from very beginning. I had to do very many difficult things when I was a young adult, which was almost impossible at that time, and succeeded at that. And what I learned over that time frame, that just doing it and accomplishing something as an activity creates energy and next level of successes, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I think. So if you want to make a list of what encourages me, that's hard, but I can try to do it. I think the first and foremost, I'm a people person. So I like to meet people, converse with them, learn from them. And I think second thing I really like is that just doing activity, accomplishing it, and solve the problem. And I think I go back to that story of Man Who Made America to some extent. Okay, I think you should have single-mindedness about success. Right? And if you do that, even though you have decided different path than originally planned, but you said you are going to succeed and that you will. And so that's my driving thing. So Megha and I were discussing this recently. It just so happened. And so I said, I don't know why I keep going, because Nilima wants me to slow down. Kids say, oh, you don't have to work that hard. But then I still keep going, and my office people also curse me for that. So she said that you have compulsion, OCD, to just solve problem when somebody just mentions it. Because you just want to help people or organization. That's in your mind, and I don't know where you got it, but that is not going to go away. Right. So nobody, so that, and I think I will also go back to my young adult together. I think what might have happened, I was also, then we would discuss why it happened, because I wanted to deep dive in it. And I think when I was young, I had lost too many things very early. And I didn't think failure was an option at that time for what I was doing. Right. And I think that created this compulsion of keep going, doing, even if you fall down and getting up and doing again and again and again. And I think that created my mental status, and that has remained with me, which has actually turned out to be good for me because it has helped me succeed. So I'm not complaining about any of that. I'm thinking that I always think that all these experiences in life is actually shaped me for my success.
Right. Very well said. I know we are supposed to get questions, so I'm not looking at my phone while talking to interview, but let me see if we are, Archish or Rowena, are we getting any questions? Because we are sitting in this format, they're going to be texting me the questions. If you have any questions we received from them, let's see. Okay, there is one question from Thomas Aru. What made you more happy, entrepreneurship or philanthropy?
Entrepreneurship
or philanthropy? Because we had it's an excellent question, by the way. You had a distinct life in entrepreneurship and a distinct life in philanthropy. Actually, the question is, what was more satisfying? And can you
it's a very good question, actually.
That's right.
Well, I think philanthropy, if you can do it, and if you're able to and energy, I think that will give you more satisfaction. Obviously, because I don't know how to value, for example, you can value entrepreneurship easily, money, successes, contracts, all kinds of things. And there are a lot of numbers. But one of the things that we have debated heavily in philanthropy is that ourselves in the Desai Foundation, is that how do you value dignity or smile that you create in a young child or women in rural area? It's almost immeasurable. As a matter of fact, right. Going back, I think maybe 5-7 years ago, Megha wrote a paper on that and wanted to, actually we went to the Harvard Business School and she made a presentation and say, I challenge you guys to measure in some kind of numbers this dignity
Right.
and smile and somehow figure that out. And we don't have answers yet.
So, it is difficult to do that.
So I think to be honest, if I was able to do that from day one, I would have just done it. Because
yeah, without the entrepreneurship journey, you couldn't have become a philanthropist.
That's a catch-22.
Right. But it's a really interesting question. So another question from Rakesh Kamdar. Many time members are philanthropists now, which is a good sign. What is your thought on having Thai group for nonprofits?
Well, we have TYE, which is nonprofit, I think.
Look, Thai in general, but I think what Rakesh is asking, I think, is that we are obviously nonprofit, but having a focus area
as a social enterprise.
Yeah, social enterprise to encourage more of that stuff to happen.
I think we should do it.
Yeah.
Because I personally think that many people have questions. Actually, I've been asked that question in the past. That because see, I think everybody can give something. You can give your time, money, contacts, your ability, other resources, and I think everybody has a ability to contribute. So it's not just Thai charter members, in my viewpoint.
No,
it would be a group of volunteers that are coming in as a young people, as well as attendees, as well as Thai charter members. I think it would be nice to do that as a group. But again, I will caution that if we isolate more and more group and we have meetings according to those groups, that I want to resist as a part of Thai, because that does not create the interchange and social fabric that we need. So we should create this group, but what we should be doing, that we should be using this Thai monthly meetings or some similar venue and find a series of, one time we should talk about social entrepreneurship, some other thing, or even in future, I think I should even have I think I was thinking the other day, I said, maybe in 25 years, I might even have some kind of social entrepreneurship meeting in space. Who knows?
Right? That would be a chapter in space.
So I personally think that Rakesh is on the right path in terms of asking that we should have more emphasis on it. And I think that goes back to my comment earlier, actually, that we should reach out to underserved community and underserved students and young folks.
I think that's one area we definitely need to
We must do that.
Sure. Right.
If we don't do that, I think we are not only doing not service to the community, but I think also it will harm us, I think.
We have instruments now to make that happen. We just have to focus on that, right? So there's a question from Chandu Shah. Sam, more than what's your message to new entrepreneurs? Many entrepreneurs are now excited. They're looking for where to invest. What is the hot industry for the near future? Yeah. It's testing you now.
Well, first of all, I think I'm a little bit rusted in hot industries, but I think you might be better off answering that question than I am. But I still think biotech is one. I also think cyber security, which Chandu is company works with, I think is one of the top one I would prefer. Actually, that's even bigger than biotech.
Security is. Yeah.
I also think that we have to come out with I also don't think in a hot area to invest as much as I feel we should invest where Thai successful people or Thai should invest. If you think that way, that is different. If you're talking about money investment, I already answered the question.
That's right. Yeah.
If you invest your time and other, I think we should invest in really areas that we are not serving right now. As a member of the Thai, as a Thai charter member, as well as Thai as an organization.
Has Thai Boston turned out the way you discussed in the initial days with the founders in your office?
resounding yes to that one, because I think that's when I was starting out initially, that we didn't have resources. We all sort of connected. And I think when you look at it, in first 5 years, we had, and I think Rakesh was there at that time. He was the treasurer. We had created successes in every possible measure that any enterprise would be measured by, in terms of kind of services, number of members, charter members, events, satisfaction, social fabric, everything. And I think, I think we succeeded greatly. And I think there have been some ups and downs. I think I have been there. And I personally think that we are on an upswing, I think. And the question was from
no, this was just a question that popped up that just said, okay, what is how did it turn out? Did it turn out the way you had expected to be?
Yes, it is. I personally think it is there, but I personally think that any enterprise should never ever think that they are already there and they don't need to worry about it.
Sure, no, you don't.
So I think that from that perspective, Thai actually has a lot of work to do. I personally think that in 25 years, sky is the limit. We can do so many big things. And I think the resources will come. As we say, that if you build it, they will come, I think. So.
Sounds good. We are almost at the end of the stuff. We have, I have one last question for you. So I know you were go person and never seem to have a moment to relax. So what do you do to kind of find some time to relax? And when you're not doing philanthropy, you're not doing the entrepreneurship or not helping out, like what's Sam Desai does for sort of, okay, I'm going to relax. What do you do for that?
Well, first of all, I like to be alone, believe it or not. And that allow me to contemplate, think, reflect, and sometimes put some words together. And I also have a habit of doing things that I don't know how to do or I'm very bad at. So over the years, because of that, I have done sailing, skiing, traveling to Antarctica, swimming in the Arctic Ocean, landing on the aircraft carrier, and all kind of crazy things. And I think my mind wants to keep doing these things. So my body seems to say, maybe you need to slow down. So lately I've been taking up the golf and playing a lot of it in last year or two. And thanks to some of our friends, and I think you included in that. So, and I think I still like to travel in some faraway places.
That's great. We'll make sure it happens. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for all you've done for Thai, Atlantic, Thai, well, the continued support for Thai. I know you're going to continue to bug me for the next 2 years as well. So that's something.
But don't forget, my next
I'll have to manage that part of it.
Yeah, but don't forget, my next generation is already in.
I know, exactly. So now, that was not enough. We have another person already.
Yeah, so Megha is already a Thai charter member, active one. So she's going to start bugging you. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. But it was really good insight. I really appreciate it. I know we have more fireside chats coming up. I think the next one is with Desh. Raj is going to be holding that. Well, and we have a gala coming up as well very soon on May 7th. Go ahead.
I wanted to thank you for, of course, being a good host for me. And I think also I wanted to thank Anu for arranging all this thing, and many who may be listening or not listening. But I think I have been benefiting by most of Thai and members, charter members, volunteers, and I want to be grateful to them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Over to you, Anu.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Yash, for moderating this. And Samir, thank you not just for sharing your stories today, but for laying the foundation of something that clearly has grown from strength to strength in the last 25 years and is poised for becoming something even bigger. You already helped a lot of founders. And just a quick point about what you said about the impact. If you look just at the wealth created by Thai Boston, I would estimate it not at millions, but billions, because the total number of companies and the wealth impact across all of Thai globally is 250 billion. And Thai Boston being the second largest of this, I would say, we are definitely a contributor in the billions and not in the millions. So that's all thanks to the hard work of all of you. So thank you. And for everybody who's listening, I hope you will join us on May 7th for what is definitely going to be a historic moment in the history of Boston, not just of Thai Boston. So we'll see you then. Thanks all. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.